Thanks for stopping by. One of my previous videos was on test firing the Zastava M77 PS from Century, and I was happy with the function, and everything's good to go as far as the stock and the functioning of all the the trigger and the safety and whatnot. After putting a few rounds downrange, I noticed, much to my dismay, I could not get the rounds anywhere near the bullseye. Everything was shooting to the left. Alright, front sight adjustment. Didn't have the tools to do it, so I had to bring it home, move the front sight over, took it back to the range. No deal. Even with the front sight moved as far to the left as I could get it, I could still only get within 2 inches of the bullseye at 25 yards. So, had to check into it a little farther. Started doing a little research on YouTube and some other sites. Common AK problem, canted front sight post. It's when the front sight is off center on the barrel, away from what you would consider the 12 o'clock position. So today I'm going to try my hand at a little backwoods solution to moving the front sight. I think it's something that we can tackle together. Let's give it a try. Alright, first up was getting the rifle set up on a flat plane, which I have by that straight metal tube that I have it clamped to, with a square metal block underneath the receiver to get the rifle squared up, perfectly level. Then what I did was I measured the width of the front sight post to make sure that it's not angled, and it is not. It is the same width top to bottom, so that I know that I have a straight surface to work off of here. Now, because the barrel sticks out a little farther than the front sight post does, I took 2 magnets of equal length and attached those to the sight post at the top of the bottom, so that I can take my angle gauge and sit it down on my surface here, and then move it into the magnets that I have here. And as you can see, if I can get some focus going on, that the top of the sight is not equal to the bottom of the sight. It's leaning over to the right, which means that I have to clock the front sight to the left to get it to catch up with the front sight post, so that I can get my center back to where it needs to be. Put that over at the 2-degree mark, move up to where it needs to be, and right there. Just right there. So that's about just a hair under 2 degrees off of 90. So now what, according to the knowledgeable people that I was taking some information from, is that these 2 pins here and here need to come out, so that I can turn the front sight to where it needs to be. Now, this came with the welded thread protector from the factory. So I had to cut that weld first so that it's not keeping the front sight post from moving, you know, that it's tightened on there. But I'm leaving that on for the time being just to protect those threads as I get ready to do my work. Next, I'll drive out the pins. So, what I need to do now is hold the barrel from turning, because I tried this once before and that front sight post is on tight. Hold the barrel tight enough so that I can get enough pressure on that front sight post to break it loose. How in the world am I going to do that? Well, let me show you the next part. I tried a couple different ways, blocks of wood and some of this plastic stuff that I have, and I wasn't able to hold it tight enough to keep it from turning, and I don't want to mess up the finish on there. So I looked up a gunsmithing tools catalog and found that they have aluminum blocks that are meant for clamping the barrel under very tight pressure. So I have my own aluminum block, which is just an aluminum ingot that I made out of some soda cans a year or so ago with my this is what I used to make the triangle shape, and then I used my Chinese imaginary mill and took a cut off the top, took a cut off the bottom, you know, flattened it out a little bit so that it would sit square, and then cut it in the center, and I put the two pieces back together and measured the appropriate size drill for the barrel, which is a little under 5/8. I don't remember exactly what the measurement was, and put the two halves back together and then drilled through it, and then I took one final cut off here so that it wouldn't it'd give me some extra clamping pressure, and I take my 1-inch thick steel plate with holes bored all over it for different things that I use to I do a lot of different stuff on this plate, and I have a piece of, I think that's 1/2-inch steel to put on top as the rest of the clamp, so I can put this bottom piece between the bolts, and then I will rest my barrel in there and then put the other half on top, and then I can put my plate on there and clamp it down. Then that'll give me enough resistance so that I can turn that sight post, let's hope. So I put shims underneath the bottom of the block to give me a little extra room, so now it's not tight down on the block at all, so I can continue to bear down on my homemade barrel clamp. Alright, now that I have the barrel tightened into my clamp, I took a piece of brass shim and wound it around the end of my pry bar so that I don't end up marking up the inside of the front sight. I'm going to put some pressure on here, and hopefully we can get this thing to break loose. There. Now I don't want to move it too much, and now that it's loose, I can take my apparatus apart here, set up my flat bar again, and take another measurement and see if it needs to move some more. Instead of taking a bunch of hit and miss shots, when I got it back in the clamp, I measured it with a depth gauge so I knew how much I had to actually move it. So we see that we're lined up with the standoffs, little magnets there, and I am square on my angle gauge, nice and tight, nice and even. And now I will re-drill my pinholes and put some 1/8 inch roll pins in there so it can't move again. Alright, the roll pins that I picked up are just a little too long, so I'm just going to shorten these up a little. Okay, I'll put my new roll pins in there. I think I'll put a little oil on there to help start them. And like that. Like that. There we go. I'll touch up the end of those roll pins a little bit with something to hide the shiny spot, but there we are, straightened out. All I got to do is move that pin back over a little bit because I already have it over to the left. So, straightened out front sight, doing it the crab-like way as always. I'm sure there's going to be plenty of people out there with middle names like Novesque and LaRue and what have you, but that aren't going to like the way I did it. And all I got to say about that is go ahead and flame on. Alright, that's it for today. Be safe, have fun, and I'll be having a range report coming up soon.